Look at you. Hold on, I'm recording. Okay, there we go.
Poppy is great.
Oh my gosh, your hair is down and there's poppies behind you. It's like I'm taking it all in.
Hilarious. Oh my gosh.
What a
Yes,
pleasure to be with you today.
I know.
How are you?
I'm better. I'm better than I was yesterday. And like I just was so discombobulated yesterday and couldn't find my footing and I'd forgotten to eat. I forgot to eat, and then like at around, I don't know, noon or 12:30, I was like, I have a loose hair that I'm trying to find. I can, you can feel it, but you can't find it. I'm like, where is it? Anyway, and once I ate, I was like, oh, this is what it feels to, like, this is normalizes everything,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to a certain extent. And I just, it shouldn't be this close.
And yet it is.
And yet it is.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to, it's like when I think about it, I feel so sad. Like I'm beyond the anger. I'm just like, come on, come on, people. We are all humans.
Yeah.
But to know that, I think the statistic that they've been saying is that Joe Biden has had the most votes ever in the history of voting and of the elections, and I'm like, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, they said it's the highest voter turnout in a century.
Yeah.
Clocking at about like 65.7% voter turnout. And yeah,
goodness.
I'm not, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised because anyone watching or aware or, just being part of the nation's narrative the last 4 years, like it has empowered and emboldened and given permission for people to be like, I don't really want to be good and decent and empathic and caring, right? Like it's given permission to people to just be all those things that you and I generally stand against. And it just left me with this, okay, nothing's changed the last 4 years in terms of the divisiveness, which means we need to start listening to each other.
Yeah.
Like that's all of my relationship skill education, saying we're talking over each other and we're not hearing each other, so it's not working, right? It's like even just in a couple, two people, if they're fighting towards each other instead of fighting as a team. Today, I feel like I saw Joe Biden, without even landing the victory, begin to heal and unite the nation by saying, I'm going to be everyone's president. And it's like, just, regardless of what we think in terms of who should have been nominated, I saw him today be presidential and being like, even the people who haven't voted for me, I'm going to work just as hard for those people, because the presidency is the one place where there is not this bipartisan whatever. And like, that's huge. I think people need to feel like they're going to be counted.
And that they matter.
That they matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really big, that they matter.
I think
Yeah.
that's what we're all fighting for. I mean, if I think of why everyone's riled up, right? Like everybody wants to matter. And if we can kind of step out of the mud of, all of us are stuck in and go, okay, so how do we make sure we're all cared for?
Yeah.
Because it's really the scarcity mindset that brings up the separation mentality, in my experience.
It is.
And as an empath, I've never felt separate from
Yeah.
anything, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard to relate sometimes. I think when I'm in conflict, I know what that feels like. When I'm in conflict with someone and I can go into separation mentality and like be adversarial and want my way.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that feeling, but on the whole, on a day to day, I do feel like everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
So how do we bring everyone to that awareness,
That's a great question.
right? Because I feel like if you thought you and I are connected, there's no way you'd be okay with you winning and me losing. It would not be a win,
It wouldn't be a win. It
right?
would
If you
not.
think
Yeah.
we're separate, then you're going to be okay with I win, you lose, who cares?
Right.
But it's not the for us mentality.
Right.
So I'm open to the for us, even though, it will be confronting and challenging to talk to people I severely disagree with. I'm still willing to listen and
Yeah.
self-regulate.
Right. Always. Always come back to yourself. Always. Yeah. And I think, my feelings of sadness, like I said, it really, I mean, yes, it's important who wins. Like I'm really happy that it looks like, Biden will be the one.
Yeah.
Um, but my sadness is universal because just because he wins, there are going to be people that feel like they've really lost out because of what they have been told, the lies they've been fed for the last 4 years. And anyway, I don't even, I mean, yes, I mean, the answers to you and I are kind of obvious. Like we know the work that needs to be done, but not everyone is in this mindset.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, the word allyship comes up, right?
Yeah.
Like I know how much I grieved the last election. So I can hold that empathic space with someone who might lose in,
Yeah.
to their, at least their candidate losing. Um, I can hold a human space. I can be human with them
Yeah.
and be like, wow, I know how, to the depths of my soul, how heart shattering that last election was for me. So I see you there.
Mhm.
And as an ally, I don't necessarily want you to be suffering. I just want us to find common ground that is integrous and has decency and has the whole in mind,
Right.
right? And I think
Right.
we can do that. I don't know too many Republican people, but I can certainly still express and extend kindness
Yeah.
and a willingness to like, okay, we probably in some ways want some of the same things for this country. In other ways, we don't. I'm
Yeah.
aware of that. But in the ways of you having healthcare and a good job and not having to worry about food on the table and, a dignified retirement and free university for your kids, like there are ways I want everyone to be cared for,
Yeah.
and we have like my finance brain knows it's about budget allocation.
Yeah.
We don't have to spend 76% on the Department of Defense. We could take a sliver out and end homelessness, and we could take a sliver out and have universal health care. Like, there are ways. But I see you in your sadness because it's going to be difficult
Yeah.
for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And I'm glad. I want to say I'm glad the season's behind us because it's not completely over. Um, I am happy though that I will not be getting, I think yesterday, I'm not even exaggerating, probably 2 to 3 times an hour, I either got a phone call or a text.
Yeah.
It was out of control. And you know, what's interesting is like, typically, like, even up until yesterday, I would say most of the political, voting calls, whatever you call them, for encouraging us to vote, I would get them like after 4 or 5 in the evening, but all day, all day.
Wow. I
And
didn't get
yes,
any, so I'm curious if it was like a
wait, you don't get
Philly.
any?
No. I got some like a few weeks ago, but I'm curious if they were very like get out the vote in Philly or Pennsylvania as a swing state.
Oh, it could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been. Yeah. Um, and for the first time yesterday, I actually Googled, how do I get myself off this list? I mean, it was making me nuts. And they're not addressing me as Heidi. They're addressing me as Margarita. Like, who's Margarita? They don't
Right,
even
call
have
you
my right name.
Margarita.
Like, you know, you're not even addressing me by my
Oh
right
my
name. I
gosh.
know.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, speaking of, do you have a cocktail?
I do have a
We
cocktail.
might as well honor Margarita. Oh my gosh, you have the invisible like magic cup. Look at that. All right.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching.
Yes.
I yeah, just holding the collective, and it's not just the nation. I mean, there are
Oh, no, it's not. It's the world. It is the universe that has been, everyone's affected. I mean, talk about, um, a ripple effect.
mm,
It's been big, and so to know that, and again, I'm assuming that we're going to have a different president in the White House. Like, I'm making that assumption. I will own it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm owning that he will be in the White House, Biden. And, like you said, he spoke like a president, and it felt like some healing was already happening. And so it's not just healing in our country. There's healing in the world and in the universe that needs to happen.
yeah, a lot of it too.
A lot. A lot.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel really judgy saying this, so I'm just going to own that. But to hear someone speak in coherent sentences that tied together and made sense felt refreshing.
Yeah.
And I don't say that with any malice. It was just like, oh, thank God. I'm not trying to decipher, you know, um, what feels very imbalanced and confusing to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's the one place Joe Biden's had his faults, and I don't agree with all the things he's done in his 40 years of service. I
Yeah.
don't expect to. Um, but what he said today was presidential, and it was reparative.
Mm.
And for those people who, we could have been in the same boat last night, right? Who are bracing themselves for some heartache due to their candidate not making it, to just get that balm on their heart that says, okay, maybe I don't believe this guy totally, and he's telling me I'm not going to be left behind, that I'm going to matter to him.
Right.
Right. And back to that piece of wanting to matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the impact of words is huge. It's just huge, And so I I pray that moving forward, that continues, and that there is less of the other, of the tweeting and all that baloney.
That it's
Um,
modeled, right? That there's a healthier thing modeled.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think one of the anchors said it pretty late last night. I think we made it till about 1:40,
Wow.
which is way past my normal bedtime. And adrenaline, right? Thank you. Um, she said how dangerous it was, the rhetoric uh, from the White House that was saying, steal the election, uh, essentially like taking such an already tense atmosphere. And this is, I think, Trump's superpower, and unhinging it one more notch. I don't respect that. I stand for really caring, compassionate leadership.
Yeah.
And I cannot stand for someone who's not being lauded, whose ego's being bruised, to create a really dangerous commentary that could create civil unrest. Like,
Yes.
I keep coming back to, like, it's not about you. But, that hasn't really worked.
Yeah. And I think that, when, as I've said before, I he's in a lot of pain, and mentally he's not well. And so those two things combined
Mm-hmm.
are really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And then the highest office and power
And then the
in the world.
highest office in power, running the most, what do we consider the most powerful country in the world? I mean, supposedly, um, and the fact that he was elected to that. But when you have someone who is really not well, um, how what else can we expect?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and she was saying she wanted me to do like a shadow workshop on like the light and dark shadows of Donald Trump, because there's clearly two camps, right?
Yeah.
And those who see his light shadows are like, oh, he's a great businessman, he's so confident, he's great with the ladies, you know, all these proud of societal things. And then those of us who see his dark shadows are like, wow, he's a bully. He's clearly not caring for the health of the whole. And I thought it was interesting because it's really, truly a love hate, right?
Mhm.
Like pedestaled or completely just like, yeah.
Right.
And it's an interesting one to me because my sense is there are a lot of people in this country who were really tired of putting on a good face.
Yeah.
And they got to have someone in the highest office who was racist and misogynistic and xenophobic and homophobic and, whatever,
Yeah.
be representing them quite accurately. So when, and this is not to diminish anyone who's feeling shocked today, but I think it's white privilege to be surprised that there is white supremacy by the millions
Mm.
in America. To be surprised. Like, I think white liberals being surprised as someone of color who's like, yeah, I kind of had this sense because of how I've been treated, because of how I've seen other people in my family or other friends of color treated. Like, this is not like just in some bubble somewhere in the Midwest,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And this is, again, not to diminish the Republicans voting for Republican values, because I've heard that too. I'm voting for these things even though I don't dig the guy.
Hmm.
But there are people that dig the guy.
Yeah.
And that's who I'm speaking to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Let's take a breath, right? Oh my gosh. Hmm. So, moving on.
So anyway, my favorite line when I'm on. So anyway.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Um, so my mom flew out Friday.
Oh yay, mom! She's getting
You know,
settled.
she's settled. She's getting settled. She's settled, and yeah. I mean, status quo is better than not. And
What's it like to know she's far now? Like, what's it like to just not be like, oh, she's with
I
the correct
know.
person?
So as time goes on, I'm a little easy. Like it's easier.
Hmm.
Um, but leading up to it for me was getting hard. I was feeling the grief and the sadness, and um but now that now that she's there and she's totally unpacked and moved in and she's with my sister and I know she's well and she's safe and all that. I feel better. Like I miss, I miss the opportunity to see her as often as I was seeing her, but I feel good knowing that she's in good hands.
Yeah. And
You
she's
know,
not
I mean,
alone and she's got company and
she's got company. She's a lot less lonely, and yeah. So that certainly it settles my heart a lot.
mhm.
Um, because it's hard. It's yeah. I mean, the other is really challenging and painful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can only be there so much, right? Like you have your own world and work
that's
and
right.
everything.
I
Yeah.
can only be there so much, and the truth is, she doesn't want someone around all the time anyway. She just likes having a little company every now and then. But yeah, so she settled and moved in and good, I think, and yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I
So
love that that happened with what sounds like some grace and ease and wasn't,
yeah, yeah, for sure. It seems that way. Yeah. So
I'm curious because I was timestamping the other video and I was curious how the online dating course for you
okay,
is
so
going and if you
I
had to talk with the guy.
I have an appointment with him next Monday. Oh my gosh. And I need to go back and look at the information to find out when the course is actually starting. Because I don't think it's just a phone call that we get. I think there's a course. I'm pretty sure there's a course with it. So I need to find out when that's starting because I don't know.
What tickled me in the last video was you being like, I don't know what to say to a man for an hour. Like there was just this like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kind of wonder. And I was like, I think that's going to be part of your work because then you're going to be on dates with people.
Right.
Not to state the obvious, but like,
Yeah. No, you're right. I get. I find that I know that I'm a really good listener and I can hold space for people and let them just sort of share. And I shouldn't say I'm not good at. I want to say I'm less comfortable with.
mm, great
What I'm less,
distinction.
what I'm less comfortable with is just sharing, Like I'm okay if someone starts like asking me a question about myself, and then I can kind of move on from there and talk about that, and maybe get into some tangents or whatever. But I'm not good at just start talk. I'm not one who's ever really talked about myself too much,
And you like to be prompted, which makes total sense. That
and I
someone
like to be prompted.
takes
Yeah.
takes interest and asks you questions and is curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have been on dates where it is the other. And he's just talking away. And I'm like, and I say into my in my own head, I'm going, it's been 2.5 hours.
Please give me a bucket of popcorn if you're going to do a monologue,
Really? I know.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if that need, two things. One is I've heard like there are some people who are nervous and so they like over chatter, which would make sense on first dates. But then I also feel like I've had to in the past flex my interrupting muscle
Mm.
and be like, hang on, like
Yeah.
in a most delicate way, but
Right. And that's a stretch for me. It is. It's really hard for me to, because I don't like to be interrupted. I
mm,
don't like to interrupt other people. So, but in those instances, I probably need to learn to exercise that a little bit, because if not, I'm never going to get a word in.
and it's so depleting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting to just take it in and receive and receive and receive, because it doesn't even feel like receiving.
Well, and I also feel inundated. I feel flooded that way.
Yeah.
I also think a conversation, I think of volleyball. Like you volley that ball over the net.
Yeah.
You don't hold it. That's good communication skills.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So hopefully you meet some men who have some skills there.
Have some communication skills.
And if
Yes.
not, you can be like, don't you want to know anything about me? Bat your lashes.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Oh
Well,
my
because,
God.
it's like the graciousness, like, I'm loving learning all of this about you, but aren't you curious at all about who's sitting across from you? Like, I like being a pattern disruptor there, because otherwise I get resentful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not easy.
It's not. It's really not. Yeah. But, like, I'm aware though, and this is, like you said, this is part of my work. And once I start exercising this muscle, it'll get easier. And it'll become, like, hopefully like secondhand.
I also love knowing this about you because I think in the coaching world, there's people like you who don't like to be interrupted and won't interrupt. And then there's other people who want to feel like they're being heard, so they want it reflected back. They want to be interrupted and gotten. And I'm one of those people who I'll ask questions in the middle of things if I don't know which type, because I want to be like, oh, I'm on the same page with you. I'm getting you. I see you. Right. So there's two
Yeah.
different MOs
Mm-hmm.
operating sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that I could certainly work on that balance in myself, because that's a really good skill to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, I've been thinking about this whole, the whole thing, and I'm like, am I excited? Like, I'm excited to learn. I'm just excited to learn,
Yeah.
new information, and maybe how to write a successful profile, or, you know, um, the other thing that I'm learning though is that, um, because I'm on this dating site, and there was one guy, this has happened twice, I think, with two different men. And I'll start, like, I'll click like, so, and then they send me a message, and then we kind of go back and forth. And like I said, this has happened twice now. And both guys asked me if I was real. I think what happens, and I had forgotten about this, But I think what happens is there's so many female bots,
Aw.
and the number of, I don't want to say the number of single men and the number of single women is different. Like there's such a difference. I don't know, but I think that the number of men that get inundated with women who responding to, oh, you know, I like you, I like you, I like you, and when the first question that comes back is, are you real? Like, are you a real person? I'm like, oh, that, okay, okay. Because that would happen when I would date on Craigslist.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, all the time, all the time. And I think that's one of the reasons they shut it down, because there are a lot of, you know, fake people.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a
And then
shame.
there's also real people who don't know how to be themselves. So that's like a whole other,
I know. I
like,
know.
like
Yes.
they haven't disarmored and taken off the mask and haven't done that work, which I think we're always doing. But,
Yeah,
ooh,
I know.
yeah.
So a lot of things to kind of wade through and kind of figure out and all that. But yeah, this online dating thing, I just I want to be forgiving of myself and be like, it's okay, you know, and do I take it seriously? Sort of. Like I have these periods where I'm like, oh, I really want to invest time. And then there are times when I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm not that, I just don't have the energy for it.
But
Yeah.
what you said, I think, last time was like, I need to figure out where I'm at with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think I shared with you, I want to be really clear about what I'm bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And leading with that vision you have, right? Because there's going
Yeah.
to be days when you don't feel like getting on that app and
Right.
scrolling and scrolling and reading. And it's like, but what was the vision,
Yeah.
right? Takes one unicorn.
Just one.
Just one. It's true.
I know. I know. God. And to keep my sense of humor about it is the most, I think, is such a priority for me. It's so important. Oh my
It's
gosh.
such a healthy way to approach it too, because what fun to have it be ease filled and playful and just being curious and human and getting to know other people. And then when there's something that feels, you know, more spiritual and more aligned, like boom, it can still be playful.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
So I was thinking about, I don't think I've ever shared this with you about myself, but I love words and I love language, but I really love words and I love like phonics, right? And all that kind of stuff. And so when I think about a word, I'm like, gosh, and not that I necessarily have to look at the history of how a word was created or whatever, but I'm fascinated. So I was thinking about the word hot toddy. Because as we go into winter,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, because I don't typically drink hot cocktails or warm cocktails. I don't. It's not something that I've ever been in the habit of. But I know that they can be called hot toddies.
Did you look it up?
I think it's such a funny word. I think it's such a, I'm like, toddy, who came up with toddy? Like,
Maybe the Brits. I don't know.
the Brits. It does sound kind of Brit, right? Yeah, right.
Did
Um,
you look it up?
no, I didn't. I just no. I put actually what happened was I put in Google my Google search. I put in toddy, and then recipes came up. So I got sidetracked. I was like, okay, so I'm not going to be finding out the history of the word toddy. But yeah,
I love it. We just had
Mm.
one of the nights it was cold here. I'd gotten some apple cider from
Mm.
the local and just warmed it up with a little clove, a little cinnamon stick, just like let it mull
Yeah.
for a little bit. And then, put some bourbon in our glasses and ladled out the cider. And it was just like,
Oh, nice.
I recommend it. I recommend that anyway. I have to see what other recipes might do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
Okay.
it. I was thinking today, speaking of words, my mentor had put something up about misogyny and misandry, and I'd never heard that word,
I
like
haven't either.
misandry.
Hmm.
But when I looked at misogyny, it had gyn in it, so I thought maybe that's lady stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
poor behavior towards women. And I thought, well, maybe misandry is poor behavior towards men.
Mm.
But it stuck with me because I'd never heard the word.
Yeah, I haven't
Now I want to
either.
look it up. But I can see there being like the I don't know what to call it. It's almost like a adversarial stance towards men or women in
Mm.
our society, right? I think men can be bashed in certain ways too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you said words, I was like, yeah, this word it's when I don't know a word, it really rattles around in my brain a little while
Mm-hmm.
because I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Uh,
Mm.
so did you do the timestamps for the second episode?
Hmm.
Because I didn't see them.
I did them today. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'll need to refresh.
And I
Okay.
kind of realized why it's so hard to do like 5 timestamps because we really go to many a place, my
I know.
friend. And it was like, I can't not timestamp this.
I know, right?
Like every 3 minutes, it was something juicy. And I was like, I can't skip over this. Like I also have 17 timestamps because
Yeah.
it's important,
Right.
and I like doing that. I like having show notes, even if it's for us. But if someone has 5 minutes and they kind of go, oh, I want to know about self-regulation,
Yeah.
it's there.
And you know what I think is interesting is I thought in our second episode that we had not changed topics so much, but apparently we did.
Yes, we did.
Wow.
We did, or at least large topics with some
Yeah.
tributaries
Right. Right.
within it. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I let's just keep doing what we're doing because
It feels good.
it feels really good. Yeah.
Hmm.
Huh.
What else has been up in your world? Just curious what's been alive for you or what you want to be seen in.
Hmm. Well, so I've been thinking about um, the collaboration we're doing. And I will say that 45 minutes feels really intimidating to me.
Too long, too short?
Too long.
Wow, I felt the opposite. Like, how am I going to cram
Really?
what I want to teach? Yeah. So it feels intimidating to you, like,
Well, I'm like, how am I going to fill 45 minutes? And quite honestly, it probably will not be an issue.
yeah.
Like it probably won't be a problem, but I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? Right? That kind of
Is it
came up.
similar to the parallel of, like, what am I going to say to a guy for an hour?
Yeah.
Huh. Just holding that with you.
Yeah. No, that's great observation. Yeah. Because the whole thing, I mean, the other thing too is that I want it to be interactive.
Yeah.
So, And I guess depending who we have, we're just doing recording it and then it gets shared with people, or are there going to be people live with us? Do you
I
know?
think it's live.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Then it can be interactive.
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
Hopefully,
Okay, good.
because people, depending on the groups of people and what they're interested in, like you should
Right.
definitely, I think you'll have a group to work with. Yeah.
But I'm less concerned.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm less concerned. Um, I don't really know what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
Like I'm going, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. I'm really appreciating having options,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and I also appreciate the ability to look outside the box, to
Yes.
consider,
Big
like to
time.
consider all of my, and I probably am not even thinking of all of my options, you know?
And
Um,
the time, which is really cool too, that you could sort of be, in process for a little while.
right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, so that's kind of what's been up for me. Yeah. And what's shaking in your world, my friend?
It's a good question. I think I had an interesting thing come up for me, which is, I'm supervising coaches in training and really attempting to have both the nurturing, supporting, encouraging aspect of me online as a coach, but also the part of me that's a fierce challenger and someone who's going to give constructive feedback. Doesn't come easy for me, like to do that part, because I hit up against this do no harm wall on the inside. So I have to really push through that to know it's in service, to let someone know if something's not landing. And of course, the universe would have it that I do that and the person gets super triggered, right? Because now I want to be liked. Now I want to make it all better. Now I want to fix it because it's so uncomfortable, right? And the school protocol is no, that's part of the process. You deal with your side of the street, they deal with their side of the street, and we both learn. And we can come back after we've processed and, potentially share insights. But we're not processing together while triggered, right? Like, and I just watched the part of me who that is strategic and is bumping against the part of me that wants to be true. It's the best way to put it. The part of me that's like, oh, I want to be liked. I want to be your friend. I know I'm your supervisor, but I also don't want to be an authority figure. And oh no, I hurt your feelings, but I said something that was honest. So, those lines. And then the part of me that's like, this is in service to their breakthrough. And it's in service to the other students to know that this is a place they need to watch. So, like, you're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't need to rescue the person just because they're triggered. It's just like all of this learning from one incident, and I know when I was a coach in training, I had this I had this really weird nervous tick where I'd smile the whole time. I'd go like this,
Yeah.
right? And somebody could be talking about grief, heartbreak,
Mm,
and I was misattuned, at least in my affect. So I'm
mhm,
sensitive to it. And I had a coach who had my back who said that feels really saccharine to me, that you're kind of effervescent and smiling when they're talking about heartbreak or grief. Like,
mhm.
you know, like consider showing more emotional impact because I imagine you have it, right? So I know, having been around that training, that sometimes, you get off a call and you're crying because it's someone seeing a part of you that you've postured with
Mhm.
and they're calling you on it. And yet, every single time I felt like those teachers had my back. So I'm just trusting the freaking process.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable because I'm like, I could fix it. I could make it all better. I could talk to her. We can be friends. And what's more uncomfortable is being like, this is how it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Let it be. Let the process work, right? We're going to trigger each other, especially if you're in a seat of authority giving feedback to someone who's just learning something. You're going to feel vulnerable. Like, can I hold that with compassion
Yeah.
and empathy? Because I was there a year ago.
Right. Right.
But I didn't necessarily, um, I think, accuse or attack my teachers.
Uh-huh.
I sort of like took it in, cried a little, saw the truth in it. So it's just interesting to be in that seat, you
Yeah.
know, really having to work with the you're not in trouble and you don't have to be liked right now.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There's a bigger picture beyond me being liked.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are the sessions recorded so that the student can go back and,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so they have sessions with their clients. Mind you, it's like their first clients like ever, right? So there's a lot of nerves there.
Yeah.
And they record it and they timestamp it for places they did well and places they struggled. And then we watch and we give feedback like, oh, you could have tried this or maybe try this or and so yeah, they can actually go back and be like, oh, maybe she's right or
Uh-huh.
but I think it's just a daunting thing altogether. You know, you're in chapter 2 of a coaching book, handed your first real client, and then on video with someone you don't know telling you what they think of it. It's super vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, I still feel that discomfort. You know, it's like, wow, I really want to be liked. I really want to be liked.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what I do at Drexel.
Yeah, I don't know that I make the connection because do you do it live or video? Yeah, do it live.
We
And
do it
you're the
live.
actual person across from them versus watching two people on video.
Well, it's like this. I'm interacting live with them. I mean, hang on, there's a siren. Before COVID, I would be in an exam room with a student,
Mm-hmm.
and they would do the intake and whatever they were doing. They would leave the room for a few minutes. I would do a checklist on the computer, then they would come back in, and I was Heidi, and I would give them feedback
Nice.
about the session. And now that we're on Zoom, we do the session, and I immediately go into feedback. So I have to break roll and turn it, just like literally turning.
That's intense.
So intense.
Oh my God.
It is so intense. And I have to tell you, you know, it's actually easier in person.
Hadn't thought of that because
For
you're
me, it is.
human.
For
Yeah.
me, it's easier in person um, because there is time in between the encounter and the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And also, for some reason, there's just, human contact, right? Even though we don't touch, there's a humanity to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they can see, like when I'm delivering constructive feedback, they can see that it's not easy for me to do that,
Mm.
And I will say, I mean, I've been doing this for 14 years. I mean,
I like that. 14, 6.
14 years, so I've gotten better at it, and I'm a lot more comfortable than I was at first, but there's very little training. And there are really some people who should not be giving feedback. Because I'm like, oh my God, you're going to make that student cry, and that's not our job. our job is to deliver. Like, I really do. I work so hard to deliver it as lovingly and as gently as I can in a constructive way that they can hear it. And honestly, there are some students, it wouldn't matter what I said, how I said it, they're going to hear it how they hear it. And I'm like, okay. And then you have some students who are like, thank you, because I didn't see that, or whatever. But most students are really appreciate. They do appreciate the honesty. They're like, oh, you're right, I didn't think about that. But and they'll go back and most of them don't rewatch their session, but I encourage them to, because they can always learn. It's such a great learning opportunity for them.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How do you reconcile the ones who don't take it well? Do you just trust? Like, obviously I'm asking for the similar reason, but how have you begun to sort of be like, okay, there's the ones that go, thank you, that's a blind spot for me, you have my back, and the ones that you're also having their backs and they're like just triggered or beyond, receptive?
Yeah. So I will say everything I need to say, and that and they'll defend themselves or whatever, or get reactive or whatever, and I'll just say thank you for coming in. That's it. Thank you for coming in. And they know that it's over, and we only have 5 minutes to give them feedback anyway, so it's not like it's endless, thank God. Like, we're on a timer. There's a PA system that has announcements, so we have 5 minutes and it's over, thank goodness.
And you hold these, what I'm hearing is like a really healthy boundary and a guardrail that's like, okay. Like,
yeah.
Because of course people are going to get defensive and want to be understood and explain it. And it's like, yeah, but this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm tracking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember one time I'm telling you, and I don't typically think about feedback during the encounter. Like, I'm in it. I am the patient. Yeah. I'm acting. I'm 100% in the role. There's this one student who was so terrible. And the whole time, I was so distracted because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say to her in feedback.
That's going to land softly.
And they always tell us, they say sandwich it, like, have a positive, have a constructive, and have a positive.
But you had like the alarm bell going off, going, woo, we're in trouble.
This is not a judgment. This is really the truth. She could hardly speak, and English, she was American. So it wasn't like English was her first language, or it wasn't, she could speak English, but she really could not communicate. She couldn't form a question. And the program that she was in was an accelerated program. So she was in a nursing program where these students were going to go through school in 11 months and have their nursing degree.
Instead of years.
Instead of 3 years.
Yeah. How'd you sandwich that?
There was no sandwich.
Oh, no.
There was no sandwich. She came back in, and I said to her, I said, well, and the first thing, like, when they come back in the room, I ask them, like, so tell me, I want to hear something you feel you did really well, and something you think you might want to work on.
Nice.
And most of them really get it. And they're like, and most of them are like, are very constructive to, like, negative to themselves. And I have to ask them.
Self-aware enough to be like, I know where my growth edge is.
I don't know that they're that self-aware, but but they can't. It's almost like they're so type A and they want to be perfect, and they can't even see the things that they've done well. And so I'll stop them, like, mid-sentence, like if they have 3 things where they're really negative on themselves, and I'll stop them. I'm like, okay, I want to hear you say one positive thing, just one positive thing you think you did really well. I mean, it's literally like they can't even, some of them can't come up with anything. So anyway, with this student, there was really no sandwich. So
Oh
she
no.
came in and I asked her, I said, so, tell me one thing you think you did really well and something you think you could work on. I kid you not. She said to me, she's like, well, I think the whole thing went really well. And I took a breath and I was like, really? Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And so she named a few things and I just said to her, look, I am going to sorely disagree with you. And here's what I saw. And I just told her, I said, I don't know if it's because of the generation that you're in and everyone's texting and they're not verbally communicating the way that, most of us do, but you couldn't even form a sentence.
Like socially awkward or
It
nervous.
I don't know what it was, but she literally couldn't form, and I was just like, she didn't even know what to ask. And these are all like intake questions, basic intake questions. Tell me why you came in today. What is your name? Can I check your ID? Like basic questions. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like it was so uncomfortable and challenging for me, the patient. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to help. I mean, and she at this point had been in school for I think 5 or 6 weeks. You know. So anyway, so for whoever's out there listening, just know that when there's constructive feedback to be given, to be received,
Yeah.
like receive it. Just know that the person across from you who's giving you the feedback, that they're really, it's hard for them. It's as hard for them as it is for you to receive it. That's really
Mhm.
the truth.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate knowing I've known this about you, but to remember it in this context because I'm like in class 4
Yeah.
of supervision trying to like paddle and be human and be curious and be, honest if I mess up and have a mentor who's like it's going to be messy, you're learning how to supervise. Like you're a supervisor in training, supervising coaches in training, like there's growth there. Um, and I also just think like, man, you know, we're being entrusted to support and buoy and challenge. Growth happens when there's support and challenge,
Right.
right? If it's all support, you've got that coddled
Right.
person. If it's all challenge, you've got someone who's just overwhelmed and never feeling seen in what they do well. And I remember, and this is what came up for me for some reason. I was in Vegas for a friend's like 50th birthday, and I think I was like 25. So I was like the youngest, maybe it's her 60th birthday. So it was all her best friends and me, right? And they'd known each other for like 40 years. And here I
Wow.
was just sort of like, like I get to, be a part of this like circle of
Yeah.
wisdom. And I was just beginning my music career. And I was kind of asking permission. It might have been cultural coming up in the Afghan culture. And here I'm going to do rock and roll. And, as a raised Asian, I wasn't doing doctor, lawyer, the things that are sort of expected.
Yeah.
Right. And then from an oppressed nation, rock and roll as a female. Right. So I was kind
Yeah.
of feeling out for permission. I think that's my sense of who I was at 24, 25. And this woman, one of my friend's friends, I think her show name was like Penny Arcade or something. So she was like some kind of crazy Soho, New York punk, maybe burlesque, something, right? Woman. But she was Italian, coming from an immigrant family. And she was a little abrasive, but I'm also like, give me everything with a spoonful of sugar, right? I'm so delicate, or I was. And she looked at me as I was like trying to get permission and trying to explain it and trying to like validate why I wanted to do this thing. And she looked at me, she's like, you might not understand this for years, but like, just like demand what you want. Don't spend all this time trying to explain it to people and whatever, just claim it. And it didn't really land well for me because she seemed annoyed, right? And I think she was trying to help me out. And it took years for me to get that she was saying, I've had my immigrant story, you have your immigrant story. Don't don't um don't wait for permission, right? Claim it.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I don't like this chick.
Oh,
Because
wow.
I felt like I was being, like, I felt so naked and seen through.
Mm.
And years later, it was like, wow, okay, she was right. So I also hold that sometimes we're not available to receive the feedback when it lands, and that later we can tip our hat in some regard to, like, yeah, she didn't want me to waste years waiting for permission.
Right.
And she was like a liberated 60-something-year-old, you
Yeah.
know, woman doing
The
her art.
wisdom. The wisdom.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's priceless.
Now, I will say, on the other end of that, I learned that tact is important too. because
Yes, it is. It
that
is.
could have landed then if it was done with, hey, I've lived that life. I've been
Yeah.
an immigrant. I've tried to take scraps. I know where you're coming from, and what my hope is for you is that you really just claim this and go for it,
Hmm.
and don't waste years.
Yeah.
And she didn't do it that way. So I do hold that tact is also important.
It is. Sure.
And
Yeah.
holding someone with spaciousness and love and being like, okay, their heart's in it, right? I look at the students and go, they're here because their heart's really in this. And we're supposed to point out where they're posturing and where they're being strategic and where they have some habits in place that are crystallized and not serving. And that's hard to look at,
Yeah.
you know?
It's hard to be honest sometimes.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
know no other way. Like, yeah,
Me either. Yeah.
I think that's why we're friends.
I think that's one of the reasons we're friends.
I think one day we need to have that photo I still have in my head, which is you like in the motorcycle with me in that little sidecar with like the goggles on.
Oh my gosh. Have you said this before? Because I don't think I've heard you.
Yes.
I've not. Why am I not recalling this?
I think when I met you, it's like I wanted to like
Oh my God.
get next to you, and I was like, ooh, we could be like this little. I wanted to be your sidekick.
For what?
I don't know, just life's adventure, I guess.
Oh my God. That is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
I think it's just the thing, like I knew I wanted to be near you, and that's about all I knew.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. Hmm.
Very sweet. Yeah. Huh. Here we are again. How did that happen? How does that happen? I don't know. I don't even know. Oh my gosh. Wow.
I feel like it's timeless, and I also feel like I went through many portals.
Yeah. Yes.
Hmm. Thank you for
Oh,
this.
thank you.
I so enjoy it, and it's like deeply nourishing, like to the marrow, you know.
Yeah. It's like being with it's like being with like a hearty, warm bowl of soup. It, it is. Like I find that so it's not like it's not only nourishing, but it also just it fills me in a way that nothing else does. You
Mm.
know? Like I so cherish it. I just cherish it deeply.
Thank you. I love
Yeah.
the word cherish. It's one of my favorite words. And
Mhm.
I treasure just getting to know you this way and being let in this way. And um, it's reaffirming to me my instincts about you when we met and just being like,
Oh.
head over heels in like that friend way where I was like, yeah. And as an adult, that doesn't happen that often,
Right.
where you're like, oh my gosh, like this is like my bestie. I want to hang out with this person.
Right.
It doesn't happen often to
I
me.
know it doesn't. I know. And I'm honored. I'm honored that you feel that way about me. And yes, it's very
Mm.
sweet.
I love you.
I love you. I'm taking all that in. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.